Since then, it's become increasingly normal to think and talk about cities in terms of the relationships, connections, and yes, feelings that community is all about. Notably, our own Peter Kageyama, the St. Pete-based author of For the Love of Cities, has argued, and I'm quoting, that the mutual love affair between people and their place is one of the most powerful influences in our lives. When Kageyama talks about love, he doesn't mean a blissful state of infatuation, but rather a sense of sustained commitment and respect that makes, say, recent college graduates want to stay in a place, inspires outsiders to move in, and affects how existing residents behave toward their environment and their neighbors. And that's where I want to start with you, our panelists. Love may or may not be a word that you want to use to describe it, but some passion for or commitment to making Tampa Bay a better place motivates each of you. Working within your own areas of interest, and they're diverse, right? From art to entrepreneurship to food to transportation to employment. Each of you creates opportunities for people to build meaningful relationships with each other and with this place that we all call home. So I want to invite each of you to sort of tell all of us here more about what you do by describing why you do it.
I moved back here in the spring of 2009 from Atlanta, Georgia. Not necessarily by choice. I grew up here and moved for a job. And when I came back, you know, I had an impression, having grown up here, that this just isn't the best or most fun place to be when you're in your 20s. Well, my views changed a lot when I did come back from how they were as a child. And I got here and I said, you know what, this is a place worth putting down roots in. You know, there's a lot of benefits we have as well being a new city. You go to an older city like Boston or New York or Chicago, something that developed at a different area that is much larger than we are, that grew at a different time. You have so many ingrained institutions in those areas. And I think around here, and something that I've found is that in Tampa Bay, if you want to get involved, if you're passionate about something, all you have to do is show up. You put your foot in the door and people are welcome to pull you through that door and say, what do you care about? What do you want to get involved in?
The reason why I'm so passionate about the things that we're doing is because I feel like I've gotten a lot out of the area that I've lived in, and I just want everyone else to experience that. I want everyone else to have the opportunities that I feel like I've had. The reason we're doing this I'm Staying campaign is because we found that a lot of the reason that people are leaving the city is because they don't feel like other people are staying here. So it's kind of this catch-22 we're stuck in. It's like, well, I don't need to stay here because nobody else is, or I don't feel like I'm going to have the support network of other people. So we want to produce this entire campaign around I'm Staying, basically to say, I'll stay if you stay. So it's going to consist of a video and an online network and a lot of funding and all kinds of cool stuff.
When you talk about the I'm Staying program, I mean, it's absolutely vital because we see these college students leaving town because they think there are no jobs here. So a big part of what I'm doing is talking to all the universities about, please provide us your interns so they know there are great companies here that you can work in, you know, so they stay here, right? And they don't go other places, right? Break down all these silos because we are all invested in this community, right? And we all, who cares if it's Tampa Bay Wave or what Ruben's doing or what I'm doing or whatever, or anybody else in this panel is doing, as long as we have successful entrepreneurship and we're doing things to help the economic engine that improves our quality of life, who cares who does it? You know what I mean? So it is very much a community effort.
So Bob, what do you do at the studio at 620 and why?
Well, what do we do mostly everything. I mean, there's not one set of things that we do, and so we're often doing a theater piece or social justice roundtable about the piece we're doing, or we do a hanging art shows, or we'll host a political conversation, or what we have found, and certainly what I've experienced in the 14 years that I've lived in I live in St. Petersburg, I came from Los Angeles, is that when you say community, it just means everybody up in the place. So it doesn't really mean technology or artists or creative thinkers, it just means everybody who claims that dirt. And then when you open your doors, they sort of inform you what community means. To speak to my experience, we are, as you know, or if you heard me say, we're trying to build capacity around the idea of always saying yes, being a yes in the community, without the Kipling if. Well, if this happens, we can say yes. So we have a track record that's uneven, as life is, but that's what I'm passionate about. We've had all sorts of people at the studio, from NPR to John Hope Franklin to Ray Arsenault to Alexander Payne, who's a filmmaker, is that when I met these two young men, the most extraordinary thing I heard them say was that when they got out of college, which was going to be imminent, they were staying in St. Petersburg, or staying in the Bay Area. I don't really do the Bay Area thing, I do St. Petersburg. That's where I live. And I just thought that was just the most extraordinary thing, that they were staying. Because that spoke to me about not only it being a game changer, but but it spoke to me about there's always a possibility that this place will always be renewed.
Swings Tampa Bay is an organization that I started with Hanu, who's in the audience here, drawing. And basically, it's a spontaneous community building organization, and we hang handmade, hand-painted swings all over Tampa Bay in the middle of the night. The idea is bringing people together, and we set up at all kinds of arts events and fresh markets and stuff, and let anyone that wants to hand paint these swings from scratch, then we take them or let them hang them, and we hang them up about 2 or 3 in the morning all over the place. We've done trees, buildings, billboards, branches, overpasses, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, the idea is sparking that curiosity, interacting with your surrounding environment, and interacting with people on a level that everybody can experience.
In terms of transit, how have you managed to get people sort of interested in coming together and having a conversation about this issue? And what have been the barriers to building community around that issue, whether it's getting people's attention through the clutter of Facebook and other emails that they're getting, or getting people to cross the bay for an event? What have been some of your successes and some of your challenges?
Well, I think everybody's well aware about what's going on the last couple of years in the public transportation discussion in this area. In 2010, there was obviously the Hillsborough County referendum to increase the sales tax 1 cent in order to pay for light rail, buses, and road improvements. That was defeated pretty soundly at the time. I created Transition Tampa Bay with my friend Brand, who's in the audience, and a few other young professionals to work on that campaign, and we spent a year working towards that because we saw it as our chance to get what we thought, representing young professionals wanting a light rail system and the benefits of transit-oriented development that we could do here. We worked hard for it. Now, we learned a lot of lessons from that, trying to energize what we thought was an easy demographic, under 35. These are people that naturally you'd think would want transportation. I mean, a lot of reasons that they move to larger cities after school is for the urban lifestyle, urban benefits, transportation, not having to have a car, and all the things that come along with that. But it was a lot tougher than I really thought it would be to fire up this cohort of the area. The best thing we got out of it, and we had this discussion about it yesterday, was you can't beat out a face-to-face discussion. We held a lot of happy hours for young professionals because, that's what draws young people out after work, the chance to have a drink, meet other people. And those were pretty successful. And I think that's where, you really got the chance to explain to someone face to face.
Bob, you're a big champion of St. Petersburg, and certainly the studio has a huge presence in St. Pete. Do you feel like you have an untapped audience in Tampa, or are you sort of happy being local?
The piece that I think we always miss, it's not about St. Pete becoming an art city or Tampa or the Tampa Bay region. We already are. I come from an extraordinary place, Los Angeles, which I never talk about, but I love LA the way New Yorkers love New York. But I love St. Pete, too, because in the 14 years that I've lived there, I've seen an extraordinary group of organizations come online. The cultural ecology in this whole area has been, in the 14 years that I've been there, constantly growing, not staying static or reaching some kind of stasis, but constantly growing. So to your point, I just think will just be up for somebody to do that particular piece. But I think the assets are already here. They're already here in this room.
I may be working on, young professional, political activism and, transit advocacy, and Ruben may be working on the arts, and we may be working on food and performance arts and technology, but they're mutually beneficial if we all know what is going on in these other communities and in these other sectors. So it's how do we do a better job of encouraging each other, connecting with each other, and realizing that there's benefit to all that.
Ellen, as I think all of you heard, sits on the board of TIBA, which is the sort of Tampa version of Keep St. Pete Local, championing local businesses. So, Ruben, could you talk a little bit about how you are involved in something like that in St. Pete?
Sure. Actually, Olga's in the audience, and she started Keep St. Petersburg Local, to call her out.
There she is.
And she invited me on to be on the board from an advisory standpoint. I just graduated with the entrepreneurship major at USF St. Pete, so I kind of had the younger perspective of starting something local. And they wanted to get in the educational side of things, so I kind of came from a program that was teaching starting things rather than running things. So we are working on some initiatives. We stick more for advocating, supporting, and educating locally, independently owned businesses. And it plays along the same lines of the I'm Staying campaign. I'm Staying is keeping people here, and Keep St. Petersburg Local is keeping that local dollar here. And there's tons of facts and studies out there that prove that a dollar spent at a local independently owned business gets circulated 3 to 5 times in that same community. For I'm Staying, we're doing St. Pete first, because that's where my connections are. That's where I know we can make it happen, and I can bring 500 people into this campaign that are going to stay in just St. Pete, and then we can branch out and do stuff in Tampa. And at that point, let's help you guys out, and you guys should be doing the exact same thing and building up, and we'll meet in the middle.